On October the 4th, 1957, while the Americans were still finalizing their plans, Sputnik was launched.
Then, its casing opened. The springs snapped, and the nose cone was pushed out of the way. A ball with 4 antennae emerged to go it alone in the darkness of space. And a radio began to send a signal back to Earth. Humanity had entered the space age.
Before the show begins, adjust your sound and focus. My voice should be easily heard in all parts of the room. Beep and flash should synchronize. If they do not, recheck the threading directions on your projector. Most Once Upon a Time stories are fictions, but this is fact. The early part of the 18th century is the once upon a time we refer to in our story. It was then that a French engineer invented a new kind of loom for weaving pattern fabrics. The patterns for the fabrics were stored on punched cards. As the cards moved past the needles of the loom, only needles that matched up with holes in the punched cards could get through to plant their threads in the pattern of the cloth. Thus, the tedious, repetitive business of setting needles to weave patterns became a machine job instead of a manual job. In effect, the hole in the card said, "Yes, come through and plant a thread." No hole meant simply, "No, do not plant a thread." That's the yes-no language of punched cards. Words are patterns of a sort, and so are numbers. Any word or number may be translated into yes or no patterns of holes or no holes.
The numeric data which is to be processed in a computer is usually written out on a card data form before being punched onto a computer card. The printed figures along the top of the card are not read by the computer, which instead scans each vertical column for punched holes. Thus, the number 3 in the first column is represented by a rectangular hole punched in row number 3. Similarly with the other numbers punched 1 per column. Decimal points are represented by multiple punching in the same column. Multiple punching in the same column is also utilized to represent alphabetic characters. Here we see a typical Fortran coding form and a Fortran punched card. The Y, for example, is represented by holes punched in 2 different rows. It is not at all necessary to learn the code in order to operate a card punch. We will use the 029 and some typical card punching operations. Firstly, the wall switch and the instrument switch are turned on. The card punch keyboard is similar to a typewriter keyboard, but uses the lowercase for alphabetic characters and the uppercase for numbers and special characters. Numbers are obtained by holding down the numeric key. Before operation, the machine is cleared by hitting the clear switch. The other switches are usually turned on. The start wheels are lifted off the program drum. Cards are placed in the input hopper and are fed into the machine by pressing the feed key twice. The data are then punched on a card. The card is released and further cards are punched. At the end of the punching, the cards are released by hitting the clear switch. A punched card produced by this operation is now used to demonstrate the duplication facility.